This video is being sponsored by Circle.
Circle is a live-action sweepstake game where the winner is decided by what happens on the pitch.
The jackpot for this week's shifter game is £300 with only a £3 entry. The link to join is in the description, or you can use that QR code down below.
Another bonus is bet 5 to get 5. This means when you sign up using our referral code TottenhamTV, deposit and stake on your first circle £5, they will give you a free £5. So bet 5 to get 5.
You have to be over 18 and a UK resident to play, but please gamble responsibly. What's going on, people? We are Tottenham TV. The Premier League is back, and that means only one thing: a preview stream for you guys as Spurs go to Everton tomorrow night under the lights at Goodison Park. First game since Antonio Conte has been sacked, but are we going to see something different? That remains to be seen, as Stellini and Mason are in charge for this game. When you're looking at Everton, things have changed for them since the manager changed. Lampard's gone, Sean Dyche has come in. What do you think the main differences are now under Sean Dyche than it was under Lampard?
I think they've definitely become a lot harder to play against. They've become a lot tougher, more aggressive. I think their defensive structure, which they've been basing their play around, is a lot more effective than it was under Lampard. It felt like under Lampard, he kept trying to get them to play like... He basically wanted them to play good football. He wanted them to play like attacking football, but they didn't have to have the players to do it. So he kept having to compromise on his own philosophy because they didn't have the players that were good enough to play his way. But because he was compromising, he didn't quite play the system he wanted. So they weren't quite good enough to play in a compromised way under Lampard because he's not a defensive manager. So they're playing in a defensive way, not under defensive manager, and it led to a lot of problems. But now they're playing a defensive way under a defensive manager. So it's a lot more compact, a lot more organised. They're a lot tougher to play through. They protect their goal a lot better, and they're playing to their strengths. They're getting crosses in from wide areas. They're making sure when they're off the ball, everyone's running, working hard for the team. I've watched a tactical video Sean Dyche did on the Coach's Voice, and he was talking about how there's a V in front of the goal which you have to protect at all times, and they're very structured in protecting this V in front of the goal, whether it goes out wide and everyone shifts over to the right. Under Lampard, it was all very disjointed because I always felt like he never really wanted to play that way, which they were playing under him, but they were forced to because they lack quality. So Sean Dyche is really organised, and not to say that they're brilliant or anything like that, but they're just a lot tougher to play against. And I think it was proven after their first game, beating Arsenal 1-0. It wasn't due to amazing football. It wasn't due to being able to break Arsenal down. It was just doing the basics really well, being a threat from set pieces, being a threat on the counter, and making sure whenever you're defending, you're making it very tough for the opposition, not giving away free goals and making sure there's nothing they do is easy. And that's what they're doing right now under Sean Dyche, and it's working, and it's probably going to take them to safety. Obviously they're not out of the woods yet. They're still very much in the mire when it comes to the relegation battle, and they need a result massively in this game. But he has definitely helped them really find an identity to play under him, and I don't think he's going to be a massive long-term success at Everton, but I do think in this short term he's going to help them get out of the mess they're in.
If you bring up the form table, not the head-to-head, the form one, and you look at the form of Everton going into it, I mean, you're looking at their home form, right? 3 wins in their last 4 games, wins coming against Arsenal, Leeds and Brentford, which is very impressive when you kind of take into account how poor Everton have been for the most part of the season. With Spurs' away struggles of late, you look at that, 4 losses and a draw in our last 5 away games, with the one before that against Fulham coming with a 1-0 win away from home. I mean, you've got to be worried going into this game.
I'm not worried when it comes to like being worried of what Everton can offer going forward. Like I'm not particularly worried about like Demarai Gray or Iwobi like being too much for us. What I am worried about is being up for the fight. We saw it against Southampton when when we were kind of on top and the game was easy for us, we were flourishing, 3-1 up, and everything was all right. But as soon as the going got tough, as soon as Southampton put us under any pressure, all of a sudden we crumbled. We just weren't up for the fight. We weren't able to live with them. Same against Wolves when we were on top and Wolves were allowing us to play. We were looking good. We were creating chances. But as soon as Wolves switched things up and all of a sudden they were putting more aggression on and starting to press us, we crumbled. And this is what I'm worried about Everton. I'm not worried about quality-wise, them coming and just playing us off the park. What I'm worried about is winning second balls, being aggressive in the challenge, not being bullied. When you look at their midfield, Onana, Idrissa Gueye, and probably who's the other one they play midfield? It used to be Iwobi, but Decore. 3 really physical midfielders who, even the best of teams like Arsenal, they were able to bully and throw their weight around. Imagine them against us. That's what I'm worried about. So I'm definitely worried for me going into this game. Like set pieces as well. Are they going to be able to bully us from set pieces and things like that? I think this game is going to be them giving us the initiative. I do think they're going to be sitting deep. They're going to be allowing us to have possession, but they're going to look to spring on counterattacks and play for set pieces, and they're going to look to bully us physically. And when they do get the chance to pen us in, they're going to try and sustain some sort of pressure by using their physicality to bully us. And I'm worried going into this game that we're going to allow them to do that. And it's like, if we're up for the fight and we're going to match them physically, then I do think we go and win this game. But I'm worried that because I don't think we're going to do that. And I think we've proven in the last few away games, Wolves, Southampton, Sheffield United, that we're ripe for the bullying and that we're not up for the fight. And especially on a Monday night under the lights where the Everton crowd are going to be up for it. It might be cold or whatever because it's going to be evening.
Poor guys.
Yeah, I'm just thinking that we're going to turn up. The
grass will be a bit too long.
That's what I'm worried about. I'm worried about us going there and just getting outdone when getting ditched, and that's what I'm worried about. And I just hope that we approach this game in the right manner.
Yeah, and like I said before, they ditched Arsenal, they ditched Leeds, they ditched Brentford, 1-0 in all of those games. And the game that they did lose with Aston Villa, Ollie Watkins scored a first half penalty, and it kind of was going the same way as the other games, but they conceded that penalty, and then they conceded a very late goal when they were trying to get a goal in the latter stages of the game. So they are a very hard team to play against, especially at home at Goodison Park this season. Only really at Goodison Park this season, because away from home they are pretty terrible. But how with the way Dyche sets his team up, are we going to see a variation in the tactic from Stellini and Mason? Are we going to see the same thing? How are we going to break them down?
I don't think we're going to see a variation. In fact, I actually think our formation, in a weird way, is actually pretty well. Is actually pretty good for combating a team like Sean Dyche, who's going to play a back four. They're going to be very, very compact. They're going to try and squeeze the pitch and force you out wide. Well, we kind of want to be out wide, because with Perisic and Porro, that's technically anyway, in theory, with Perisic and Porro, those are the areas that they like to be in. They like to stretch the pitch as wide as possible. They're going to be very compact and trying to squeeze things very centrally, and they're going to force us out wide. And hopefully, if Perisic and Porro on their game, that's where we can really hurt them. So I think it's going to be in the wide areas where the game is won. It's going to be interesting to see if they go to a back three or they stick with their back four, which they've been doing a lot under Sean Dyche, which I assume they will going into it. But we know under Lampard they went to a back three occasionally. If they do go to a back three, I would be more worried, because all of a sudden they can match us out wide, and I don't think we have the creativity to play through them. But if they do stick with their back four, I do see us having a lot of joy out wide. And to be honest, under recently, Porro's been finding all kinds of space against Forest, against Southampton. He's been really enjoying himself, Pedro Porro. So I can see him doing that. But it's whether we can take advantage of those situations of the wider, because I do think we're going to get space out wide. It's whether we can take advantage of that, which is going to or whether we take advantage of the wide areas, or if we stretch the pitch, we can find Son and Kulusevski and Kane in more spaces because the pitch is stretched. I anticipate them not getting the spaces. I anticipate them leaving Porro and Perisic to have a bit more space out wide rather than stretching the pitch and allowing Kulusevski and Kane and Son to have a bit more space. So it's about whether our wing-backs can really take advantage of the space I anticipate.
When you're looking at the head-to-head between the clubs, we do have a fairly good record against Everton, having conceded against them in our last 3 games, a 2-0 and a 5-0 win at Spurs, and then last time at Goodison Park was 0-0. The last time we've won at Goodison Park was that famous 6-2 game under Pochettino.
Wow.
But since then, we have not done well at Goodison Park whatsoever. So last year 0-0, the year before 2-2, that 5-4 in the Cup, 1-1 in the year before that in 2019, and then before that was 6-2. So, I mean, we're not losing games at Goodison Park, but we are struggling to win games at Goodison Park. But with the results around us this week, Liverpool losing again, we'll see what happens later on with Manchester United and Newcastle, but we've got to win this game, surely.
I think we have. I think it's a very important game to win to cement our spot in the top 4. It'll be interesting because whatever happens, Newcastle against Man United, either we have the opportunity to go third with a win, or we have the opportunity to get some breathing space against Newcastle. So whatever happens in that game, it's an opportunity for us. But we don't, as I've said before, we don't take opportunities, we give opportunities. So I think that's even more reason probably why we won't get a result on Monday night. And as much as I want to believe we're going to go there and play our football and get a new manager bounce onto Stellini. Now Conte's gone. Obviously, this is the first game under the intermediary tenureship of Stellini and Mason. Well, I like to believe we're going to go there and show fight and just play our football. I find it hard to believe that we are, given the previous away games we've had. The only thing I can think of is, those home games we had under Stellini and Mason. We did show a bit more aggression. We were more kind of not maybe on the front foot, but we were more aggressive in those games, and we weren't making as many silly mistakes. So maybe that's something to show positivity. But then again, the away games we've had under Stellini have been Wolves and Sheffield United, and they didn't exactly go well. So away from home,
we played very well in that first half against Wolves, didn't we? And then it all just fell apart, didn't it? In the second half.
We can say that in loads of games. And we played well for a bit against Southampton, but then we fell apart. It doesn't matter if you fall apart. That's what matters. And we have been falling apart. Also, in these games.
But in a sense, do you not think that there will be something that is going to change this weekend? Because it's the players clearly fell out with Antonio Conte, right? And Stellini was talking at this press conference saying, he is going to make a few tweaks tactically. Him and Mason, will have the advantage to do that. Where maybe in those games, I know he did in Man City because Conte was just too ill to pick up the phone and give them those tweaks. But in those other games, in that Sheffield United game, in that Wolves game, Conte was hovering over them the whole time, whether it be virtually or on the phone or whatever it may be. Conte was still the manager at that point. So now he's gone, maybe the players will have a bit of, the shackles off a little bit. Do you not think there will be a few tweaks and we can see a different Tottenham this weekend?
Maybe. I don't believe that Stellini is the kind of manager who's just going to allow them to play free-flowing football. That doesn't seem the kind of manager he is. He's a defender. He's obviously been part of Conte's coaching team for a very long time, and I think that to be fair,
it's not actually a long time he's been part of Conte's coaching team. It's only since Inter Milan.
Yeah, and he was there at Juve.
Apparently he wasn't, is what I was listening to a podcast, I think The Athletic or someone, over the weekend, and they say the first time they worked with each other was Inter Milan. Is that not true?
I mean, I looked at his previous career. It does say he was at Juve, but then he obviously got a ban when he was at Juve for a match fixing scandal. So he was there, maybe. I mean, and it does coincide.
Maybe he wasn't his number 2.
Yeah, maybe. I think he was just a coach. I don't think he was assistant at that time, but he was there when Conte was there as well. So I don't think Stellini gives off the impression to me that he's just let's just go for it kind of manager. I still think he wants a solid defense, to be solid defensively. I still think he's going to expect the players to to kind of dig in defensively as well. I do think there might be an element of when you say the shackles off. I mean, what does that look like to me? Because I think when under Conte, apart from maybe games against bigger sides where maybe the shackles would definitely be on, like were the shackles not off against Southampton? You know what I mean? When we were 3-1 up.
When I say the shackles off, I mean without Conte being there specifically on the sidelines, telling everyone where to be at every specific
giving the
time
players more responsibility
and micromanaging every single facet of the game. That's what I mean by shackles off.
Yeah, there might be something. There might be. Yeah, maybe that will help. Maybe that will help, not having someone on the sidelines who you're sick of telling you what to do all the time, and maybe that leads to. Even if it's unconscious, just that slightly less bit of effort being given, and maybe now Stellini's there, that will fully be given. But I'm just worried about it's not about for me like being attacking or defensive and all these kind of things. It's more just that mentality is my worry, and will they be able to dig deep and get a result in this game? And that's what I'm worried about, because Everton are going to be right up for it. Their motivation, their energy is going to be really, really strong. And whether Tottenham can match that, that's my big issue. And maybe they can. Maybe Stellini will get them there. But I just question whether he will.
Yeah. It is a big question mark. We are going into the kind of unknown, aren't we? Stellini team without a Conte influence, or he's going to have a Conte influence, but not Conte constantly on the phone being like, do this, do that. And then Stellini being like, am I allowed to do this? Am I allowed to do that? And saying yes, no, yes, no. So we are going to a bit of the unknown, and we'll have to see how it works out. But specifically looking at Everton, these are the two players we've earmarked as ones to watch. Jordan Pickford, 93 saves, which is third in the Premier League this season. 16 punches as well, which is also third in the Premier League with 27 appearances this season. James Tarkowski, 60 blocks, which is the most in the Premier League this season, and 152 clearances from him, which is third in the Premier League this season after 28 appearances. And it kind of went back to Burnley, didn't it? When Sean Dyche came in, that game against Arsenal, 1-0, James Tarkowski getting the goal, and it's just like picking up where they left off at Burnley, isn't it?
Yeah, a bit, and obviously he's got Michael Keane there as well. He's got McNeil there as well. So he definitely started to recreate that Burnley side, maybe the one that finished 7th under his stewardship back in like 2018. And I do feel right that that's how he wants to play. I do feel obviously they have a bit more quality than that Burnley team did. So he'll fancy his chances of improving the results. But when it comes to Pickford and Tarkowski, had two players having very good seasons at the moment with Everton. I think Pickford has really he was getting a lot of backlash for some of his performances at Burnley, to be honest, and he was Burnley at Everton, and he was kind of under the gun, and people were saying he shouldn't be number one anymore for England off the back of some of these performances. But I do think he's answered a lot of those critics this season. I do actually think, despite Everton's bad form, he's been one of the better players, pretty consistently this season, Jordan Pickford, and fair play to him. I think he's been very good, and Tarkowski has been a very good signing for them, despite the fact that, again, things haven't been great this season. I think he's been one of the players, especially since Sean Dyche has come in, where he's been very consistent and making very few mistakes. I do question whether he's of that level, maybe to take them on to like getting them back into challenging for Europe. I do think he's a good defender. Maybe he just needs better defenders around him. But I think in this kind of situation, he's kind of perfect.
Yeah, I think they've got players there that are willing to fight for the badge. If you bring up the lineup graphic, you've got Townsend and Calvert-Lewin ruled out for the game. Pickford, Tarkowski, Keane, Coleman, Godfrey, Gay, Onana, Decore, all of these players are there and willing to fight for the badge, and are going to make it very hard for us to break them down and play through them. You're looking at those attacking players. I mean, that's where their flaws are. McNeil, Iwobi and Gray. I mean, on their day, they can produce good moments, but consistently, can they do that throughout the course of the season? I don't think so. But you mentioned the wide areas, maybe the areas that we're going to find our joy. But how are they going to hit us? Where are we going to be most vulnerable? Is it going to be set pieces and that kind of sort of angles?
Pretty much. I mean, obviously, counter-attacks. Damari Gray is very, very quick, and if they can kind of find passes over the top, that's definitely an avenue they'll look to hurt us. I think McNeil is obviously a very accomplished crosser of the ball, albeit they don't have too many players to aim at, but what they do have is people like Decore making late runs into the box, and he's definitely someone who you've got to be wary at because he kind of goes under the radar, Decore, when it comes to like him being a threat, because he's usually seen as like defensive midfielder, but he's actually quite adept at making those late runs into the box and getting on the end of things and being physical, so that's a worry. And I think just their midfield, Decore, Gay and Onana, they cover so much ground. They're so physically imposing. I think people like Onana and Decore as well technically are underrated. I think they're quite good passers of the ball, and they're kind of you don't want them getting too near, especially Decore. You don't want them getting too near the box and having opportunities to shoot. So I think the central midfield is for me the biggest problem. I do think McNeil out wide on the left-hand side swinging crosses has got to be a bit of a concern, because especially because we know Porro likes to get forward. So whether McNeil finds good spaces on the left is going to be a worry. Also, McNeil is a very hard worker as well, so he's going to be tracking Porro all the way back. We know that for sure. That's one of his biggest attributes. So you just got to make sure. But if we make sure that we're not giving away any silly free kicks, not too many corners, I do think their avenues to attack us will be limited. I really do believe that.
And when you're looking at Spurs going into this, I mean, yet another injury crisis on our hands. Basuma, Bentancur, Sessegnon, Richarlison, Davis and Emerson Royale all ruled out for the game. Perisic, Stellini did confirm that he's fit to play the game, and Hugo Lloris as well. Do you think, first of all, starting on Hugo Lloris, does he come straight back in?
It's interesting because this one, actually, in this kind of game, I would argue it might be worth having Forster in, because when you have a team like Everton who was so adept at set pieces, like I think Forster's actually more comfortable coming and claiming things in this kind of game and having punches and being more physical. So for me, if it was my choice, I would wait till next week against Brighton to bring Lloris back in, and I would keep Forster in for this Everton game because I think Forster's better. But I do kind of, with Lloris being our captain and the respect he commands, I do suspect Stellini will bring him straight in, but I, for one, would keep Forster. That's what I would do, because I just think if you're being bombarded with crosses and set pieces, I'd just rather Forster there.
Yeah, I mean, I hope we're not bloody bombarded against Everton this weekend on Monday night.
I think most teams would be like, that's what they do. They spam crosses in, and they try and get as many set pieces, and they just they spam crosses, and so I think most teams get bombarded by them in a way.
Well, I hope not. But in terms of the wing-backs, it's obviously the only two fit wing-backs in Perisic and Pedro Porro. Centre-backs all speak for themselves. I mean, it's hard for Stellini at all to make too many changes, because just everyone that we don't have a squad, do we? We've just got pretty much 11 fit players. Yeah,
I think it picks itself pretty much. I think that to be fair, because of the injuries, there's not too many real problematic decisions he has to make. So you've got, maybe, does he play Danjuma, which is not really a decision at the moment, because I think he will stick with Son and Kulusevski and Kane. Does he play Sarr instead of Skip? Is that something? There's a decision. I would say Skip's playing very well at the moment, so I don't think he puts in Sarr. Does he bring in Tanganga or Sanchez? I can't see him bringing them into the back three. Obviously the wing backs pick themselves, and I guess the biggest decision is, does he bring Forster back in? I guess that's the biggest decision.
That is the biggest decision.
And I, to be honest, I think it's, for me, I wouldn't, but I wouldn't be surprised if he does either. So I'm not 100% sure what he's going to do, but I've got a feeling he does bring in Lloris just because he's our captain. I think he brings him straight in. So I think Stellini, when he did have choices, I guess he was the one who brought Richarlison in, wasn't he? So I guess maybe he would have played Richarlison, especially given that's his old club as well. Maybe he would have played him if he was fit. But even if everyone's fit, I think this is pretty much the team. Maybe Davis as well, actually. Davis probably would have played. So I guess he's a hamstrung a bit with a few injuries. But with the injuries that we have, I think the team pretty much picks itself.
Yeah. All right, so having said all that, what is your score prediction going into it?
Well, my predict the Prem, I said we'll lose 1-0. I don't see a reason to change it, to be honest. I think we will get Dyche. I just think that I reckon like from the start of the game we'll have a bit of joy. We'll find some space out wide, but I don't think we'll take full advantage of it. I think we'll put some crosses in, but Everton are very good at getting crosses out, clearing them away and stuff like that. And I just feel like that when we start battening down the hatches and Everton really turn the screw and they start to really physically impose themselves, are we going to be able to cope with that? And once the crowd really gets on their side, and like, are we just gonna crumble? And I just get the feeling, yes, we will. And I'm happy. I'll be delighted if I'm proved wrong. But from the evidence I've seen of this Tottenham side, as Conte says, they don't like playing under stress and under pressure. And when we get put under pressure on Monday night, are we going to have to live with it? I'm going to say no, but I hope I'm wrong.
Yeah, I'm gonna be a tiny bit more positive. I get what you're saying, and to be honest, I agree to a certain extent. But I also think that, you know, Conte's gone now. Like I was talking about before, the shackles of him micromanaging every facet of the game will be gone. And I think the players will respond in a positive way to that, to be honest. And I think Stellini, he's shown him and Mason, they can throw up tactical tweaks that can really have a big impact in the game. So I'm backing for that to happen. And I think that what you're talking about, Spurs having that early dominance, if we can get an early goal, then their game plan goes completely out the window, and I think that plays massively into our hands, and I think we go on to win the game if we do get the first or an early goal. And I'm going to back for that to happen, and I'm going to say 2-1 to Spurs, with a bit of a kind of reinvigorated performance, should I say. I think we've got a lot of hard games coming up, and this is one of the ones where we need to get the 3 points. This one and the Bournemouth game. If we need to get 6 points out of those two games, and then we'll really have a massively good chance of getting that top four. So I'm going to back that to happen. I'm going to say 2-1 to Spurs. Sim saying 1-0 to Everton. I want to know your score predictions in the comment section below. But that is our match preview for the game against Everton on Monday night.